This is Ryan and Michelle, and welcome to the Celebrate MarriageCast, where we hope to restore and reclaim godly marriages through honest and real conversations.
Welcome to episode 34. Glad to have you listening to our show today.
Yeah, welcome everyone. Well, we just want to say thank you to all of you listeners for partnering with us on this mission to really restore and reclaim godly marriages. It's so important, and we thank you for just helping us to share this message, getting this message out. You know, Michelle, we really want to just create a platform where we can have honest and real conversations and really just kind of open up the book here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
just putting our life on display because we know that you're probably going through this stuff too.
Right.
And there's so much, and just really talking real life. And last week's episode, we talked our house had water and we peeled back the carpet, and then the padding was squishy wet. And then we took all that out and we found mold on the walls. And I mean, that's real life, you guys.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like some of these things people just, first of all, how do people know some of these things? Because it's hard.
Yeah.
The things that are thrown at you as an adult, as a parent, as a married couple, there's hard stuff.
Right.
And we want to go through it with you.
Yeah.
Encourage you.
Yeah.
You're not alone what you're going through.
Right. And I think, Michelle, it's so important to realize that it's never perfect.
Yeah.
Right? It's never perfect, but the
or
whole,
as planned. We talked about that for Mother's Day show. Not as planned. Nothing is as planned.
Right. But the point is to point you in the direction of the one that is perfect. And that's really was the goal, and really what we want from this is to realize, like, hey, our relationship is not perfect, you know. And I'm sure
it's been a hard week.
Yeah, it's been a really hard week, and you know, but it's moving in the direction of the one that is.
Yeah, it's our foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we want to say thank you for listening, thank you for sharing, thank you for subscribing. I think we're over 30,000 on YouTube.
Oh my gosh. I haven't even checked for a week or so here. Wow.
Which is just amazing.
Thank you, listeners. And it's just incredible to hear the stories. We had someone come up to us actually last weekend in church. Was it David?
Yeah, I think so.
And just said, thank you so much for what you guys are doing. It just, I know we were in between songs during the worship and we didn't have a chance to hear his story, but just, had impact, and he wanted to share that with us. So we hope it's touching your life as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Michelle, today I wanted to build on a topic that we had discussed with Gary Thomas, which if you haven't listened, just an amazing interview, amazing book, Making Your Marriage a Fortress. It was so good.
I brought the book. If you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, you can see it, but we can put the link to that again. I think his other books have sold over, 2 million copies. Yeah. He's a very well-known author for Sacred Marriage and Cherish, but this is his newest one, Making Your Marriage a Fortress.
Yeah, and it's so good. Want to build on a topic actually that we were discussing with Gary, this idea of running a race.
Yeah, he's a runner.
He was a runner. Michelle and I have been runners, are runners.
Yeah, gosh, what point do we move out of the running category? We're runners. We're still runners.
Yeah.
We are runners.
Yeah. So, Michelle, do you know the two most important things in running a race?
Well, I would say, and just to give our listeners context, when we say running, it's like some serious running that, well, especially Ryan, you've done countless marathons.
Yeah.
You got me to do a couple marathons, but you've actually done an ultra, which you guys, 50K, which was about 32 point something miles.
Yeah, it was in Nebraska, so it was a little bit off. It was kind of rounded. I don't know it was like 34 miles.
And also trivia fact for you guys, everyone thinks Nebraska is flat, right? The plains. Was the hilliest race course I think we've ever seen.
It was terrible.
Up and down, up and down.
Terrible. Yeah.
See Ryan running up a dirt road and then down and up. Ryan, I would say a plan for all the races, the big races. Granted, some we would just, this sounds ridiculous, we would just go. it feels a little bit weird to say for a half marathon, we have just gone out and done them, but we've done so many that when we first started, especially, and for the longer races, marathons, we would follow a plan.
Okay.
So I would say a plan, and then you said two things.
Two things. Yeah.
Practice, maybe?
Okay.
Like you have to go and do it, right? You have to have a plan.
Right.
And you have to practice it.
Yeah.
Am I in the right area or am I way off?
No,
shoes.
You're close.
Do you need shoes?
You do need shoes.
Like gear? Good
gear?
gear?
You don't have to have shoes.
Supportive community.
Yeah.
Where are you going?
Close. You're close.
Thanks for that encouragement. I'm way off. What do we need?
So the two most important things in a race, you have to know where it starts and where it ends.
Yes.
Because if you don't know where it starts or where it ends, you're just running. You're just running around aimlessly.
Just out for a jog.
Just out for a jog.
Yeah.
And there's no end in sight or nothing. You have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I thought you meant like training, like what you need to train for it. Yeah, a race, definitely need to know where it starts.
Right.
And probably where it finishes.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, you could just follow the other people, but that could get a little dicey too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think though this is such a great analogy for marriages and relationships.
Okay.
And just in life in general. You know, so if you think about that, so you know, Michelle, maybe jump in here, but you have to know where you start. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we just had this conversation about something the other day, and I remember saying, well, this is where we're at now, and this is reality. And now that we know reality, we can go forward. Actually, I think it might have been about our moldy basement. Because we have mold in it, there's a chance obviously probably been going on. It's happened a time or two before.
Yeah.
So our guest room, we're not in there super often. It's in the corner. But I think that was at the situation I said that. Now that at least we know where we're at now.
Yep.
Because now we can take care of it and move forward.
Yeah.
But when you don't have that check-in point, when you don't have that moment of reality, I think reality is coming to terms with reality is such a pivotal moment for any situation you're in, because then you can go, like you said, then you know where you're starting or where you're at, and you can move forward. If you're just aimlessly going, I think that is more debilitating and maybe harmful than anything. You know, even our basement example, it would have just kept growing and getting worse, right?
Right.
But now we know.
Yep.
And we can move forward.
Yeah. And I think in the context of a relationship, you know, if your marriage is in a spot maybe where it's struggling, this is going to be really hard because you have to be honest. Mm-hmm. You have to be real and say, okay, I'm not doing something, or I am doing something, or like this is the problem.
Yeah. 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 Actually, okay. So I can give an example with that, Ryan, if we want to talk about like more personal examples. I think when way before we met, actually, it was probably 16 years ago now, 17, 18 years ago. It's been a while. And it's actually part of what brought me to Celebrate, but coming to the terms of the fact that I was dealing with an eating disorder. And I think for a while, even though I clearly had it, it was like I was, I don't know, tricking myself. I wasn't even coming to terms with the fact that it was a problem. Yeah. Like it was just when I talk to people that, you know, since then that they're dealing with that, I've always said like, it's an external way of dealing with something happening on the inside, very much like an addiction. But it was, for me, that was my really not healthy way of dealing with chaos. And it didn't really like raise alarm bells until I was at like rock bottom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had a roommate kind of point some things out, and I started going to a counselor, and she took me, as far as she could. And then I went to another one, and she had said, why don't you go to Celebrate and meet some young people? And that was one of the things. She said, first, you need to get out of this toxic relationship. I was dating someone that was just really unhealthy. And then you should go to Celebrate and meet some young people. And I did that. I was like, I can't believe I did it, but I did. And that was when I started restoring my relationship. I always had grown up with a religion, but never really had a relationship with Jesus until Celebrate really is when it renewed that. But I was just lost, and that was that valley moment. I just remember crying out on the floor to God, God, I know this is not the life you purpose and plan for me. But really, God, I don't want to say allowing, but kind of me in that moment, God used that. I'll say it that way. God used that moment, because at that moment I was like, oh my gosh, this is a really bad spot I'm at, and I don't want to be here. And once I came to terms with reality, starting point, I knew where I wanted to go. I didn't know for sure what it looked like. I just knew I didn't want to be there. And I knew I wanted to go somewhere better. And I knew it had to include God. And I even told you that when we first met, I'd been on that journey, and I said, hey, done this my way before, didn't work, doesn't work. It's got to be God's way. So I knew he had to be there.
Michelle, you said a couple of things in there. Thanks for sharing that. I think also, when you identify where you are, where you're starting, the other thing that just in your story and hearing this, you were able to identify, okay, I am here. I need some help. And part of that could be professional help. That could be a counselor. You mentioned you had two different ones. Or it could be a pastor. It could
Pastoral help was part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's identifying those people. Okay, I am here. I'm starting here. And it's also, as you identify where you start, you can figure out, hey, who can help me? Who can bring me along? Who's done this? Who are those quote unquote coaches? That can help me in this race.
I like that, the coach analogy. And I think that for different seasons, you'll have different coaches too. But there are people that have gone there before you. Really, that's what a coach is, right? They probably have experience in that area. They've gone there before you, kind of a mentor, and they're on your side. And they're for you.
Absolutely.
Professional help.
And I think, one other just quick thing here on this topic is I think you also have to realize you are not alone. So if you're in your marriage, if you're dealing with something, I guarantee somebody else has walked this path. You are not the only one. Somebody else has done it. Somebody else can help you walk through it. I think that's one of the great lies that Satan tells is that, oh, you're the only one. You're the only one that's done this.
And what do you think happens then? Is it then shame or embarrassment that keeps people from reaching out for help? Maybe. Just feeling like I'm the only one. There's no way out.
Right. I think that isolation happens, and then absolutely, it's well, nobody else, nobody can help me walk through this. But I'm telling you, somebody can help you.
That I think is such an interesting lie of Satan that I think you're right. We do believe that I'm all alone, and it's a lonely road. I do a little bit of health coaching and stuff on the side. And one of the things that's always amazing to me is that I deal with a lot of people that have digestive issues, and they always come to me and they're really embarrassed once they open up. I'm like, what else? Okay, you need help with sleep, you need this and this. And then once we start uncovering things, usually digestion comes up at some point along the way. And it's just kind of astonishing to me that more people than not have issues, but no one wants to talk about it.
Right.
And so much so that I've actually just started coming out and being like, hey, what about your digestion? How is that? Because most people have something, but that's just one example, just in the health aspect of how people are like suffering in, silence, and they don't realize that they're not alone.
Yeah.
They're not alone. And I think too, Ryan, wouldn't you say from talking to all of these authors, I mean, we have a couple of dozen now authors, over a dozen, probably getting close to 24 authors. I mean, I'll have to count them up, but we've wrote a lot of books for you guys, and we hope the Cliff Notes have been good and that you're loving the Celebrate MarriageCast book club. But I feel like there are certain themes that come up in almost every book. And based on all of that, you're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not, because everyone's talking about these things.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a key part as you identify where you were at, as you identify your starting line for your relationship, for your marriage. As you identify that, there's coaches. There's coaches that can help you.
Yeah.
Well, the second part of this, Michelle, did you have something to add?
I just want to throw out a few resources. It's been a while since we've talked about it, but specifically for hurts, habits, hangups, Celebrate Recovery is an amazing ministry to get plugged into. We have a Celebrate Recovery here at Celebrate Church. Incredible. Grief Share is another ministry. We have it here. I think it's nationwide. It's an incredible ministry. Divorce Care for kids. Those are amazing places. Financial Peace University, if you're dealing with financial things. Just some great resource groups that are available. And obviously, our marriage and pastoral team here at Celebrate, we have pastors on call. We have a pastoral team. There are people that want to walk with you in that. We have, there are a couple of groups for, I believe, pornography addiction, men on a quest to, to have purity in their minds and eyes and hearts. What else do we have? I feel like there's just about anything that you can think of. Celebrate Recovery really is an overarching group for hurts, habits, hangups. So even the example I gave of the eating disorder, that would be an appropriate group for someone dealing with that to go to. Or we're getting pastoral care, counseling. We've interviewed Tony Boer multiple times, Assume Power Counseling. Pastor Chris Fickle could give you recommendations for people too. But just reach out. You've got to start somewhere. And there are so many resources. You don't have to do it alone.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Michelle. So the other part of this, as you identify where you're starting, you also have to know where you're going. You have to know the course. You have to know the end and what this looks like. So a few years back, our family ran a relay race together. Basically, you take, I don't know how many people it was, 6, 7 people maybe. I don't know if it was that many. It was a full marathon, but I remember we each had 3 or 4 miles. So maybe it was. Maybe it was 6 or so people on a team. And we ran it as a family. And
us 3. Well, with our oldest daughter and then 3 other friends, I think. Yep.
Right. And somehow during the course, when our daughter was running,
she was younger than probably 13.
Yeah, I was thinking 13, 14. Yeah.
I think she was young. I think it was like 12 or 13. Yeah. Like middle school.
Yeah. Somehow, of no fault of her own, she got off course.
Yeah.
And, not only was it a scary time because we didn't know where she was.
Yeah. And there was a volunteer at the corner, and she had said this way, and they had said they were sitting down on their phone, and they said, yep, that way. Yeah. They never looked up, and she went the wrong way.
And she went the wrong way. And so, not only was it scary, it was also exhausting, right? Yeah. Because she ran a ways off of the course.
I would say over half a mile, maybe, if not
probably
closer to a mile. Yeah.
And I take that, and I think so much about relationships and marriages, and I think so many have got off course. They missed a turn, they got off course, and they're just running. And it's scary, and it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting because you don't know where you're going. you got off course, and you don't know where the finish line is. You've lost sight of that finish line.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how fast you're going. You're not going to get there.
It doesn't matter, And so, this is, once you identify where you are, you also have to identify where you're going, And so I think about that. Like, I hear so many couples say, "Oh, we're just bad communicators." Well, you can say like, "Hey, I want to be a better communicator."
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to push in or push back to people that say that, because I hear that too with people that say like, "Oh, I'm not a reader." I think that your mind is a powerful thing. And if you say, "I'm not a reader, I'm not a good communicator, I'm not," then you're right. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Or we've said this with our kids. If they're like, "Oh, I can't do it." You're right. You can't. Not if you don't think that you can. So you have the power to change that.
Absolutely.
It's just a skill. Last week we talked about skilling up. Learning skills for your marriage, and that's a skill that you can work on.
Yeah,
anyone can be a good communicator.
Right. But so to put that in action, then like, you can't just say, "Oh, I'm a bad communicator," or "Hey, we want to communicate better," and then never do anything. Like, you have to have a picture painted of, okay, we want to become better communicators. We want to communicate better as a couple. Okay? So then what does that actually look like? Instead of just saying it, we want to be better communicators and then not changing anything.
Yeah.
You have to have an action. Say, "Okay, Michelle, we want to communicate better. We're going to sit down for 15 minutes every night at 9 p.m., shut everything off, put our phones away, and have a discussion."
That's great. Yeah.
You have a clear vision of, okay, this is what that finish line looks like.
Right.
This is what it's going to look like.
Right. And we do that. We have calendar meetings where we'll even pull our daughter Ella into those. We'll say, "Hey, we're going to grab your calendar. We need to chat." Kind of, that's more of a work meeting, right? That's more of the logistics.
Yeah.
But we have those too where we'll say, "Hey, we're going to watch, a show, and then we're going to chat." Or, "Hey, at 9:00, let's grab a tea or, a LaCroix, whatever, and let's sit out in the living room and chat."
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's so important to have that mapped out, that finish line of what this looks like, put any topic in there.
Yeah.
To have a detailed, finish line to what that looks like.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other examples. Communication, I think, is a really big one, but really anything. I mean, I think about how you would tackle a problem at work. It would be, you would have a plan and a goal and objectives and stuff. I think sometimes is remembering to put energy into things that are maybe more important than work, because in that example, communication, I mean, it takes work.
Yeah.
It's not easy, right. But also passivity is not going to move you closer. We've said it before about you're either growing or dying. You're always moving in a direction.
Right.
So if you're just coasting, you're probably not going in the direction you want.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good
word.
Marriages,
Great marriages do take work.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They don't just happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think this is where you, maybe it's your marriage and, this is another statement. "Oh, I want to have a great marriage." Okay. Like, that's a blanket statement. Like, what does that actually mean to you then?
Right. That would be like me saying, "I want to be a millionaire."
Right.
Okay. Well, what's your business plan?
Right. Like, you have to have what that looks like. Okay. Okay. So you want to have a great marriage. You want to have a great relationship. Okay. Find people that have one, and like model that, saying, "Okay, I really like the way that these two communicate. I like the way that they act."
Yeah.
When I see them in public, when I see them, at their house, when I see them with their kids, like, there's something about them.
Yeah. you're the sum of the people, the average of the people that you're around,
Yeah.
the 5, the 7 people you're around. So yeah, absolutely, Ryan.
Yeah.
That's great.
I think it's so important. So you have to know where you are and where you're going.
And have a coach to help you along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Because I think that the other thing that coach can do is point you in the direction and give you resources.
Make sure you don't miss a turn.
Right. If I'm a bad communicator, okay, if you have a coach, they might tell you, hey, here's 5 books that you can read on communication.
Right. Speaking of that, we should talk about, I gave a lot of resources a few minutes ago, but we have marriage mentors here at Celebrate, and we also have amazing life groups. We're in a couples life group, and that is another great set of coaches for your marriage.
Yeah. 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 Michelle, I'd like to just kind of close here with there's a scripture that just came to my, as we were thinking about this, that just really kind of popped out to me.
Okay.
1 Corinthians 9:24 says, "Don't you realize that in a race everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize? So run to win." I just have this analogy of everybody's running.
Right.
Right?
Running the rat race,
They're
running around,
crazy, but how are you running? Okay. So do you know where you're starting? Do you know where you're ending? Do you know where you're going? Do you know the course? See, these things are so important in marriages and relationships. Put in the work, run to win. Great
show, Ryan. Really great.
Thanks.
You know what? I appreciate that on top of everything going on this week, you had the concept and idea for this. And great topic.
Thanks, Michelle.
Have this jar for you.
All right. We've got a mystery question here.
We need like a little jingle, like it's the mystery question time.
That's really good. I like that. I don't know where these came from.
We don't really know either, but
they just show up here.
So 2 or 3 weeks ago when the Gravels, Lucas and Amy were here, they had been guests before. So you guys know that Ryan always asks our guests questions. They'd been guests before. So we wanted to come up with different questions. So we asked our producers, hey, what do you think about some mystery questions? And we're trying it out now and seeing what you guys think. So we have absolutely no idea what is in this jar. There are 4 questions in here. Ryan just picked one out on a little piece of notebook paper.
Yeah.
All right.
So it says, how do you maintain healthy control and boundaries with the opposite sex at work?
Great question.
That is a great question.
I love this topic. When I was in staff on staff in ministry, it was modeled so well. And I have since then kept almost all of the things that were suggestions and kind of guidelines and just really healthy tools that they gave us. So for me, it looks like no one-on-one meetings with someone of the opposite sex and no riding in the car with them and just really being aware of that. And I think what that does is it's just a good guardrail. It just models really like healthy boundaries. And, it's interesting because I think one time somebody was like, oh, well, nothing's going to happen. And I was like, well, it's not like I'm insulting you or like saying like, oh, I think you're going to like put moves on me or something. And that's not it at all. Right. It's a couple of things. One, if that's always a guideline, then you're never going to have to get to a situation where you're in kind of the deep end. Like if it's just always what you do, you're protecting yourself, right? Because I don't think things just all of a sudden, you just don't end up in like a stranger's bed, right? Like it's lots of little micro things. It's, sharing emotional vulnerability with someone of the opposite sex. It's, confiding in them with things that you should be confiding with your spouse on. It's actually, we're going to have a show about this. So I won't give too many of our things away, but, so it's just having that boundary. So it's always in place, but also the perception, because if I'm having coffee with somebody for like a networking group or something, and they're a man, people would probably know like, oh, she's just is a business meeting, but it just creates a little pause. Like there's one slight moment where they see me and they're like, oh, hey, Michelle, and oh, that's not Ryan. Oh, it's someone else. And not that that's awful. I mean, lots of people do that. It's just not really a situation I want to be in. And sometimes, maybe you can't control it, but I found that in most situations, there always was something I could do. I'd either bring along, when I was in a networking group, when we did our one-on-ones, I'd bring my friend Sarah along. She was in the same networking group. So I'm like, hey, you know what? It's my time to meet with Lance. Hey, Sarah, let's both meet with Lance.
Yeah.
And it was totally fine.
Right.
I didn't say like, oh, I can't meet with you. Like I didn't make it awkward, but I knew what I was doing and I just made it natural.
Yeah.
And that was I felt good about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
What did I answer the question?
Yeah.
That's one example of what I do.
No,
a couple of things.
Yeah. I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you did
Read the
great.
question again so our listeners know what you're answering.
So how do you maintain healthy control and boundaries with the opposite sex at work?
Okay. Yeah. So I gave good work examples.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I think for me, two things. Now, I work on a female team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only male on the team.
Mm-hmm. There are 5 of you, right?
5 of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think two things.
Okay.
One is words. I think words are super important in especially how I talk about Michelle, and very, I'm always very edifying and I'm not, part of that's regardless of where I am.
Sure.
I've shared that before that I think words are so important and how you speak of your spouse is huge. I think that carries a big weight at work and wherever you are. But I think especially at work, I think in regards to how I talk about you.
Thanks, love.
Is a huge thing. I think too, the other thing is at work and after work.
What do you do?
Like here's the thing. My coworkers are great. I'm not going to hang out with them after work by myself.
Sure.
Like me and another coworker, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
If we're doing a team outing and we're all going somewhere, okay, that's one thing. I'm not going one-on-one.
You're not going to go grab a bite to eat and talk about a client
prep
or something.
After work, it just, I don't know. I think that's one area that, or a boundary, I guess, that I have, that I'm just not like, hey, let's go out and for dinner or something like that.
Yeah.
You and another coworker just by yourselves.
Yeah.
That's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, I think those are two things for me that are super important, and just boundaries that I have.
Yeah. Thanks, love.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
I think you'll find that your spouse feels very honored and respected and cherished when you do things like that too.
Yeah.
I certainly do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I know you've said the same.
Yeah.
For me.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. This has been fun. I do like those mystery questions.
Yeah.
We'll look forward to it.
Yeah,
Send them in.
fun.
Send them on in. To our listeners, thank you so much. Like Ryan said, we are here for you. This is the vision of Celebrate Church and the Celebrate MarriageCast is to help you wherever you're at with your relationship. So thank you for listening today. And hey, if you would like additional help or marriage resources, we are here for you online. Celebrate.church/marriage. We also have a pastoral team. Feel free to reach out to them. Additionally, just let us know your takeaways. We will put our text in number. Let us know what you thought of the show. Send us your mystery questions, and we hope that you have a great week.